Let's do a little bit of reverse engineering, so to speak. Let's look at where we are. Senator Graham mentioned policy issues. Let's take a look at where we are and how we got here. Right now, we have more income and wealth inequality than we've had, I think, in 100 years. We have CEOs making 350 times what their average workers make. We have half of our people living paycheck to paycheck. We have the average worker in America today making $40 a week less in real wages than he or she made 50 years ago, despite huge increases in productivity. And right now, we're looking at corporate profits at a 70-year high, while companies have raised prices for a number of goods at extremely high levels. And we have concentration of ownership in sector after sector that we have not seen in a long, long time. Secretary Reich, let's talk about policy. How did we get to where we are today with so much income and wealth inequality, where the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while ordinary Americans are struggling?
Mr. Chairman, to my mind, there are three interrelated reasons. One is that corporate power keeps growing. And when I say corporate power, I'm talking about market power, corporate dominance over their markets, the ability to raise prices and not suffer any competitive loss. And we see this especially during the pandemic and now. Senator Graham asks, how can it be? Well, I'll tell you how it can be, because corporations, and they've said this in earnings calls over and over again, they're taking advantage of both the pandemic and the inflation and the war, some companies, to raise their prices because they can. They can get away with it. Now, you can call it, and we can call it whatever we want to. We can call it price gouging, or we can call it profiteering. It doesn't matter what we call it. The fact is, they are doing what their shareholders want them to do, and that's capitalism. But workers and consumers are paying the price. Another major factor is that labor has had less and less bargaining leverage. Labor unions, when I was growing up, a third of the private sector workforce was unionized. Now, 6% of the private sector workforce is unionized, which means that if you have companies that are getting more and more dominant, on the one hand, and workers who are losing their bargaining power on the other, it's no surprise that you're going to see widening inequality.
Let me interrupt you if I could, because I want to get to, thank you. Let me get to Dr. Owens to respond to that.
Yeah, so you need motive and opportunity to commit a crime. I don't think that corporate greed has changed significantly from the pre-pandemic period to the post-pandemic period. So I really agree with my Republican colleagues on that point. I think what we're seeing here is opportunity. It's the opportunity that changed. In the case of Exxon, which just today noted that they're going to be seeing quarterly profits this quarter better than they've seen in a decade, the opportunity was foreign war. In the case of 3M, that's jacked up the price of masks, the opportunity was the pandemic. And in some cases, the opportunity is actually the pretext of inflation, the ability to point to inflation rather than their own profiteering. So I think what we're seeing here is really a system that was set up to pounce on a moment like this, and corporations are taking it to the hilt. They're telling us that over and over again. I think we should believe them, and I think Congress can step in, and we have a variety of policy tools at our disposal, from an excess profits tax to trying to rein in buybacks, to implementing a federal price gouging statute. I think we're overdue for a federal price gouging statute to protect against exactly this kind of profiteering during crisis moments, economic transition, climate catastrophe, and the like.
Let me ask Dr. Falken, how do you feel when two people own more wealth than the bottom 42%, when CEOs make 350 times more than their average employee? Is that a good thing?
I view profit as a reward that people realize from serving their fellow Americans. And so if they amass profits because they have offered a better product at a lower cost than somebody else, I don't begrudge them for providing that good or service to me or to my fellow Americans.
Okay, thank you. Senator Grassley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no questions.